Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Espresso English. I'm your host, David, and today we have a very special conversation. Joining me is our wonderful co-host, Linda. Hi, Linda.
Hi, David. Hi, listeners. I'm excited to share a personal story with you today about my move from a small village to the bustling city of New York. I know it's been quite a journey full of ups and downs.
That sounds amazing, Linda. Today we'll explore not only your adventure, but also learn some useful English words, idioms, and expressions along the way. We'll take time to break down these expressions so that our intermediate learners can understand them better. So, let's dive in.
When I was growing up in my village, life was simple and predictable. The community was close-knit, and everybody knew each other. But as I got older, I felt that I needed to spread my wings and see the world. That's when I decided to move to New York.
That's a brave decision, Linda. You just described spreading your wings. For our listeners, to spread your wings means to start doing new and challenging things, often stepping out of your comfort zone. It's like saying you're ready to explore new opportunities.
Exactly. I realized that staying in my village, where life was very calm, would not give me the chance to grow in the way I desired. New York, with all its fast pace and diverse opportunities, seemed like the perfect place. However, I wasn't prepared for some of the challenges I would face.
Before you dive into those challenges, could you explain what diverse means?
Sure, David. The word diverse means showing a great deal of variety or being made up of different kinds of things. In New York, you see many different cultures, languages, and lifestyles, which makes it a very diverse city.
That's right. And diversity can enrich your experience by exposing you to new perspectives.
When I first arrived, I was both excited and overwhelmed. The city never sleeps, as they say. New York is always buzzing with activity, and that was a stark contrast to the quiet rhythms of village life.
Never sleeps is an interesting idiom. It means that the city is so active, there is always something going on at all hours of the day. It's a colorful way to describe a bustling city.
Right. And because of that non-stop energy, I often felt like I was caught in a whirlwind of activity. Imagine stepping into a place where the streets are alive with noise, bright lights, and people rushing to their destinations.
Caught in a whirlwind is a vivid image. For those unfamiliar, it means being swept up in events or feelings so fast and so intensely that you feel a bit out of control. It's an excellent way to describe feeling overwhelmed in a big, dynamic city.
Yes, and another expression I encountered was raining cats and dogs. One day I got caught in a downpour, and it was literally pouring rain, so heavy that I had to take shelter in a nearby cafe.
Raining cats and dogs is a common idiom that means it is raining very heavily. It's one of those quirky expressions in English that makes weather talk more colorful.
Exactly. And after that day, I quickly learned to always carry an umbrella when stepping out. It became one of those little habits that make a big difference.
So, once you got over that initial shock, how did you start settling into your new life in New York?
Well, the first step was finding a place to live. I was determined not to settle for less, meaning I wouldn't compromise on a place that didn't feel right for me. I looked for an apartment that was affordable yet in a safe and convenient location.
Settle for less is an important phrase to note. It means to accept something that is not as good as you could have, often because of limitations in choice or resources. It's a reminder that sometimes you should hold out for what truly suits you.
That's a great explanation, David. I eventually found a cozy apartment in a neighborhood that was both lively and friendly. It was a bit of a challenge adjusting to the noise and fast pace of city life, but I made it work.
You mentioned making it work. That's another idiom we should highlight. When you make it work, It means you manage to handle or adapt to a situation, even if it is not perfect. It's about finding ways to overcome challenges.
Exactly. And part of making it work was also learning to budget wisely. The cost of living in New York is notoriously high. I had to learn that sometimes you have to tighten your belt, which means you must reduce your spending to save money.
Tighten your belt is indeed a useful phrase. It means to cut back on expenses, especially during times when money is tight. It's a reminder to be financially cautious.
Living in New York wasn't all smooth sailing, though. I encountered some real challenges, especially when it came to navigating the busy streets and the fast pace of life. One of the biggest challenges was understanding all the different accents and slang used by people here.
Understanding different accents can be daunting. In our vocabulary, the term slang refers to informal words or phrases that are not typically found in formal language. They often vary by region or social group.
Absolutely. I remember one time I overheard someone say, "That party was lit." I wasn't sure what that meant until I asked a friend. It turned out that lit in that context means the party was really fun and exciting.
Great example. Lit is a modern slang term that means something is very enjoyable or exciting. It's fascinating how language evolves and new expressions come into play.
Another challenge was dealing with the overwhelming pace of the city. Sometimes I felt like I was burning the candle at both ends.
Burning the candle at both ends is an idiom that means you're exhausting yourself by doing too many things, often without enough rest. It's a vivid way to describe the physical and mental toll of a busy lifestyle.
Exactly. There were days when I'd work long hours and then go out to meet friends, leaving me little time to rest. Over time, I learned the importance of balancing work and personal time.
Let's talk about the positives now. What were some of the good things you discovered about living in New York?
Oh, there were many positives. One of the biggest advantages was the endless opportunity for personal and professional growth. I met people from all walks of life, which enriched my understanding of the world.
From all walks of life is a phrase used to describe people from many different backgrounds and experiences. It highlights the richness of diversity.
Yes, and the city itself is a treasure trove of cultural experiences. Art exhibitions, theater performances, and festivals abound. I even started attending language exchange meetups, which not only improved my English, but also allowed me to make lifelong friends.
That's wonderful to hear. When you mention treasure trove, it means a rich source of valuable or delightful things. It's a metaphor that paints a picture of abundance.
On the flip side, there were also downsides. The high cost of living is always a concern. Everything from rent to groceries was more expensive than I was used to. Plus, the city can be impersonal at times. In my small village, you always had a friendly neighbor to chat with, but in New York, interactions were often brief and transactional.
Transactional is another key word here. It refers to interactions that are more businesslike, where people exchange services or goods without much personal connection. It's interesting how language can capture these nuances in social behavior.
Absolutely, David. I also experienced the feeling of being lost in the crowd. Even though there were millions of people around, sometimes it felt like I was just another face in the sea of anonymity.
Lost in the crowd is an idiom that means feeling unnoticed or insignificant among a large number of people. It's something many people feel when they move to a big city. It's important to acknowledge that while cities offer opportunities, they also have challenges that can affect one's sense of identity.
That's true, but with time, I learned to navigate these challenges. I made efforts to build a community, join clubs, and even volunteer, which helped me feel more connected.
Let's pause for a moment to highlight some important English points that came up in your story. For example, earlier you said you felt overwhelmed by the pace of New York. Could you explain what overwhelmed means?
Sure, David. Overwhelmed means feeling completely overcome or overpowered by strong emotions or stress. In my case, it was the sensation of not being able to manage all the stimuli of city life at once.
Great explanation. And what about the expression, making it work?
To make it work means finding ways to manage or cope with a difficult situation. It's about resourcefulness and determination, even when conditions aren't ideal.
Exactly. Another useful idiom you mentioned was tighten your belt. Can you recap what that means?
Tighten your belt means to reduce spending or adjust your lifestyle when you have less money than usual. It's like making a sacrifice in the short term to ensure you have enough resources to get by.
Excellent. It's very helpful for our listeners to understand these idioms in context. They not only enrich your vocabulary, but also give insights into everyday English expressions.
Living in New York taught me a lot about cultural adaptation. I had to learn to roll with the punches. This means that I had to accept and adapt to problems and difficulties as they came along without getting discouraged.
Roll with the punches is an idiom borrowed from boxing. It means to adapt to adversity and keep going, even when faced with difficulties. It's a reminder that flexibility and resilience are key to success.
That's right. In my early days, I would sometimes feel frustrated by the fast pace and the seemingly endless demands of city life. But I learned that every setback was an opportunity to grow. I began to see challenges as stepping stones rather than roadblocks.
Stepping stones are things that help you progress toward a goal. They may not be perfect, but they serve as necessary steps along the way. It's an encouraging way to look at obstacles as parts of a journey.
Indeed, and another phrase that helped me was taking it one day at a time. This means focusing on the present moment rather than worrying too much about the future. By doing so, I was able to reduce anxiety and appreciate the small victories each day brought.
That's a wonderful expression, Linda. Taking it one day at a time is advice often given during stressful times. It encourages you to break down challenges into manageable parts and handle them gradually, which is particularly helpful when adjusting to a new environment.
One of the most rewarding parts of my journey was building new relationships. In my village, everyone was like family, but in New York, making friends took extra effort. I learned the importance of putting myself out there.
Putting yourself out there means to take risks by exposing yourself to new experiences or relationships, even if it feels intimidating. It's a crucial step for personal growth, especially in a new city.
Yes, and I remember my first language exchange meetup. I was nervous about speaking in front of so many people, but I knew I had to overcome that fear. As soon as I started talking, I realized that everyone was supportive and eager to help each other learn. That atmosphere really helped break the ice.
Break the ice is a very common idiom used to describe initiating conversation or interaction in a way that eases tension and encourages communication. It's wonderful to hear that you were able to create such a friendly environment for yourself.
It truly was. I even made a friend named Sarah who had moved from another country. We would often exchange cultural stories and compare our different experiences of adapting to life in New York. Sarah taught me the phrase, "a blessing in disguise."
A blessing in disguise is a phrase that means something that appears to be a problem at first, but later turns out to be beneficial. It's a reminder that sometimes negative experiences can have a positive outcome, even if it's not immediately obvious.
Exactly, David. Even though the process of adjusting was challenging, I now see it as a period that helped me become more resilient and independent.
Now that you've had some time to reflect on your experience, how do you think this move has shaped your life and your perspective on language and culture?
Moving to New York was a life-altering decision. It forced me to step outside my comfort zone, which taught me that the world is much bigger and more complex than the narrow perspective I once had. I became more open-minded and learned that every culture has its own beauty and lessons to offer.
That's very insightful, Linda. When you say life-altering, you mean something that significantly changes your life, often for the better. It's a powerful expression that captures the magnitude of your experience.
Yes, and I now have a deeper understanding of how language and culture are intertwined. I realize that mastering a language is not just about vocabulary and grammar. It's about understanding the context in which that language is used. When I hear an idiom like, "to hit the nail on the head," I appreciate not just its meaning but also the imagery it evokes, of precision and accuracy in communication.
To hit the nail on the head is indeed a great idiom. It means to describe exactly what is causing a situation or problem, or to be exactly right about something. It's an excellent reminder that clear communication is key in any language.
Absolutely, David. I believe that learning a language through real-life stories and examples, such as my journey, makes the process much more engaging and effective for learners.
That's our goal here at Espresso English, to blend storytelling with language lessons. We want our listeners to not only improve their English, but also gain confidence in using the language in everyday situations.
One thing I would like to add is that no matter how daunting a challenge may seem, persistence and a positive attitude can make all the difference. Every experience, whether good or bad, has contributed to my personal growth.
That's a fantastic note to end on, Linda. The idea of persistence is crucial, especially when learning a new language or adjusting to a new environment. When you mention persistence, it means continuing firmly despite difficulties or obstacles.
Yes, and I'd like to encourage our listeners to embrace their own challenges, learn from them, and keep moving forward. It's okay to make mistakes along the way because that's how you learn and improve.
Before we wrap up today's episode, let's quickly review some of the key expressions and vocabulary we covered. Spread your wings. To explore new opportunities or step out of your comfort zone. Diverse, showing a great deal of variety. Never sleeps, used to describe a city that is always active. Caught in a whirlwind, feeling overwhelmed by rapid changes or events. Raining cats and dogs, raining very heavily. Settle for less, accepting something that is not as good as you could have. Making it work. Finding a way to manage a difficult situation. Tighten your belt, reducing spending during hard times. Slang, informal language used in everyday speech. Burning the candle at both ends, exhausting yourself by doing too many things. Lost in the crowd, feeling unnoticed or insignificant among many people. Roll with the punches, to adapt to difficulties. Stepping stones, opportunities or experiences that help you progress, taking it one day at a time, focusing on the present and not being overwhelmed by the future, putting yourself out there, taking risks to meet new people or try new things, break the ice, to initiate conversation and ease tension, a blessing in disguise, something that seems negative at first but turns out to be positive, life-altering, having a significant impact on one's life. Hit the nail on the head, to be exactly right about something.
That's a great summary, David. I hope that our listeners can take these expressions and use them in their own conversations. Every time you learn a new idiom, try to think of a personal experience or story where it fits. It will make the learning process more memorable.
Very true. Language learning is not just about memorizing words, it's about living them, using them, and understanding the context in which they work. I'd like to thank you, Linda, for sharing your story so openly. It's both inspiring and educational.
Thank you, David. I'm glad I could share my journey with you and our listeners. Before we end, I'd like to answer a couple of questions that some listeners sent in.
Great idea, Linda. Our first question comes from Emily in Boston. She asks, "How do I overcome feeling overwhelmed when learning a new language?"
That's a common question, Emily. One thing that really helped me was to break my learning into manageable steps. I focused on learning a few new idioms and words each week, and I practiced them by using them in sentences. Also, remember to celebrate small victories. Every time you successfully use a new phrase, it's a step forward.
For those learning English, it's important to remember that every small achievement counts. Don't be too hard on yourself if you don't understand everything right away. Learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. Our second question is from Raj in San Francisco, who asks, "What advice do you have for adapting to cultural differences in a big city?"
That's a fantastic question. Linda, what was your approach?
For me, the key was openness and curiosity. Embrace the differences rather than fearing them. Ask questions, learn about the history and traditions of the people around you, and join local events. Also, remember that cultural adaptation takes time. Be patient with yourself.
That's very practical advice. And for our listeners, being open to new experiences and learning about cultural nuances can greatly enhance not just your language skills, but also your overall life experience.
I agree completely, David. And one more thing, don't be afraid to make mistakes. In my early days, I'd sometimes use an expression incorrectly, but people were usually very understanding and even corrected me gently. That helped me learn even faster.
That's a crucial point, Linda. Making mistakes is an integral part of learning any language. It's important to see errors as learning opportunities rather than setbacks.
Absolutely. And I want to remind our listeners that every journey has its own pace. Whether you're moving to a new city, learning a language, or adapting to cultural differences, keep your focus on progress rather than perfection.
Well said, Linda. As we wrap up today's episode of Espresso English, I encourage all our listeners to revisit this episode, jot down the expressions we discussed, and try using them in your daily conversations. Remember, language is a living, breathing entity that grows with each new experience.
Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. I hope my story, along with David's explanations, gives you practical insights into both the challenges and rewards of stepping out of your comfort zone. Whether you're an intermediate learner or someone looking to improve your English fluency, remember that every day is an opportunity to learn something new.
That's right. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review and share your thoughts on social media using the hashtag #EspressoEnglish. We'd love to hear about your favorite idioms or personal stories related to language learning.
Also, if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, feel free to reach out to us via our website or social media channels. Your feedback is invaluable.
Before we sign off, let's quickly review one more expression that ties our discussion together. To hit the ground running. This means to start something energetically and with confidence. Linda, would you like to share a final thought on that?
Sure, David. Hitting the ground running perfectly captures the essence of moving to New York and diving into new challenges head first. It's a reminder that sometimes you have to take a leap of faith and begin your journey with enthusiasm, even if you're not entirely sure what lies ahead.
Thank you, Linda. And thank you to all our listeners for joining us on this episode of Espresso English. Remember, learning English is not just about the words you use, but also about the experiences and stories behind those words.
Absolutely. Embrace the journey, learn from your mistakes, and keep pushing yourself to grow every day. I'm Linda, and it's been an honor sharing my story with you.
And I'm David. Until next time, keep practicing, stay curious, and always be ready to spread your wings. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for listening.